Today we are doing lesson 4.2, solving inequalities with addition and subtraction. Our I can statements for today: I can solve and graph inequalities using addition and subtraction, and I can solve real-life problems involving inequalities. All right, so solving inequalities using addition and subtraction. So we solve inequalities exactly the same way we solve equations, which is using inverse operations to get the variable by itself. The steps are exactly the same as addition and subtraction equations, except when you have, you're going to have an inequality sign instead of an equal sign. So if we look over here, our addition property of inequality states that if we add the same number to each side, the inequality remains true. And then the subtraction is the same thing. When you subtract the same number from each side of the inequality inequality side remains true. The side that started off greater than is still going to end up greater than, even when we add or subtract the same amount from both sides. Okay, so let's go ahead and try a few practice problems. Here's our first one. X plus 7 is greater than or equal to 19. So we have a plus 7 on the side with the x, so we have to cancel that out with subtraction, and we're going to subtract on both sides of the inequality. 7 minus 7 is 0. It leaves me with x. Instead of putting in equals, I'm going to put a greater than or equals. And then 19 minus 7 is 12. So x is greater than or equal to 12. Let's take a look at number 2. T minus 5 is less than negative 7. So we're going to add 5 to both sides. Negative 5 plus 5 is 0, so I'm left with T. This is less than. Remember, less than kind of looks like a sloppy L. Negative 7 plus positive 5, different signs. Find the difference. That's going to be a negative 2. So if T is less than negative 2. All right, for number 3, this time our variable is on the right side of the inequality. It does not impact how we solve it at all. This is a minus 3 and 6/10. It's on the same side as the z. We have to cancel it out by adding 3 and 6/10 to both sides. Negative 3 and 6/10 plus 3 and 6/10 is 0. Leaves us with just z. Now I need to add my decimals. I did my best to line up the decimal places. Now I'm just going to add same signs, find the sum. 4 plus 6 is 10. Carry the 1, bring down that decimal. 1 plus 1 is 2, plus 3 is 5. So I have 5.0 is less than z. And let's take a look at our word problem here. The school auditorium seats 350 students. There are already 309 students already seated. Write and solve an inequality that represents the additional number of students that can be seated. Now, a lot of times in inequality word problems, they have words like at most or no greater than or no more than that tell us the inequality symbol. On this particular one, they don't give us a phrase. We have to use a little bit of reasoning to figure out the inequality sign. So 350 is our total. That's how many seats are in the auditorium. There are 309 kids already there. We want to know how many more, so adding x, how many students, and then the amount is 350 amount of seats. So I cannot have the number of students greater than 350, or not everybody's going to have a seat. So it needs to be less than 350 in order for everybody to have a seat. But it could equal 350. There wouldn't be any empty seats left over. So my inequality is 309 plus x is less than or equal to 350. Now we're going to go ahead and get rid of the 309, and we're going to do that by subtracting. This is positive. So we are subtracting 309 from both sides. The x stays the same. The less than or equal to stays the same. We're ready to subtract. We do need to borrow from the 5. It's going to be a 4. This is going to be a 10. 10 minus 9 is 1. 4 minus 0 is 4. 3 minus 3 is 0. So x is less than or equal to 41. And then story problems need a label. So our label here is going to be students. X is less than or equal to 41 students. All right, go ahead and pause the video. Try these 3 on your own. Note it does say to graph the solution. So you do need to make sure you're writing down a graph with your work. Okay, well, let's go ahead and check our answers. So for number 1 here, I have y minus 6 is greater than negative 7. So I need to get rid of the minus 6 by adding 6. In equations like this, you don't have to do a boom boom. You certainly can. A lot of people do it anyway. This is a negative 6 minus 6. Either way, I'm still going to add a positive to cancel it out. If y is greater than, and then negative 7 plus positive 6. Different signs, find the difference. That's going to be negative 1. Y is greater than negative 1 is the solution to my inequality. Be careful not to just put in equals there. Y does not equal negative 1. Y is greater than negative 1. All right, so for my graphs, remember you need 3 numbers. The number in your inequality solution is going to go in the middle. You're going to do one that's less, you're going to do one that's greater, and you need to make sure you're going up by a consistent amount. So here I'm going up by ones, negative 2, negative 1, 0. Y is greater than negative 1, so it does not equal negative 1. I need an open circle. And then I'm going to shade to the right. Those are the numbers that are greater than negative 1. If I took my number 0 and I put it back in, 0 is greater than negative 1. That's true. Remember, as long as the variable comes first, it's on the left-hand side, that inequality symbol is going to point the way towards where you're shading. That only works if you are, if you have the variable first. All right, let's take a look at 2. B minus 3 8/10 is less than or equal to 1 7/10. So I'm going to add 3 8/10 to both sides of my inequality. I'm going to line up decimals the best I can. B is less than or equal to, same signs, find the sum. 7 plus 8 is 15. Bring down the decimal. 1 plus 1 is 2, plus 3 is 5. So B is less than or equal to 5.5. Now I'm going to graph it. If I have 1 decimal point in my answer, on my number line, I usually go up by tenths. 5 and 4 tenths, 5 and 5 tenths, 5 and 6 tenths. Now I could have gone up by halves. I could have done 5, 5.5, and 6. That would have worked too. Okay, B is less than or equal to 5.5. So can equal 5.5. I'm going to have a closed circle. This time it's less than, so I'm shading to the left. That's because this is where my solutions are going to be. If I put 5 and 4 tenths in, that's true. 5 and 4 tenths is less than or equal to 5 and 5 tenths. If the inequality, or I'm sorry, the variable comes first, the inequality points the same way as the way that I'm shading. Only works if the variable comes first. All right, let's take a look at this next one. Negative 1/2 is greater than z minus 1/4. I've got to get rid of the minus 1/4 by adding 1/4. Before I can do negative 1/2 plus 1/4, I need a common denominator. I'm going to use fourths, which means I need to take that negative 1/2 and multiply by 2 over 2. Negative 1 times 2 is negative 2. 2 times 2 is 4. So I have negative 2/4 plus a positive 1/4 is greater than z. Okay, different signs, find the difference. 2 minus 1 is 1/4. More negatives, the answer is negative. Negative 1/4 is greater than z, or if you want to flip-flop it to help you with your graphing, z is less than negative 1/4. If you flip-flop the inequality so the variable comes first to help you with your graph, then you need to make sure you flip-flop the sign as well. Remember, alligator eats the bigger number. Here, 1/4, the negative 1/4 is the bigger number. The alligator is eating the bigger number here. The alligator is eating the bigger number here. All right, negative 1/4. My denominator is fourths, so that's what I'm going to go by. Negative 2/4, which is really 1/2. Negative 1/4, and then 0/4 would just be 0. Okay, so I'm going by fourths. That's my denominator. Okay, cannot be equal to negative 1/4, so I'm going to have an open circle. And then I'm going to shade to the left. Negative 1/4 needs to be the larger number when the two numbers are being compared. Negative 1/4 is greater than z. So if I put in negative 2/4, that would be true. Negative 1/4 is greater than negative 2/4. Or negative 2/4 is less than negative 1/4. Either one of these inequalities, they mean the same thing. Both are shaded this way. Okay, here are 3 more to try on your own. Go ahead and pause the video and try them, solve and graph. Okay, let's check our answers. So here I have a plus 7. I'm going to cancel out by subtracting 7. 7 minus 7 is 0, leaves me with w. Bringing down my less than or equal to. I'm going to do a boom boom here, make that negative 10 plus negative 7. That's negative 17. So w is less than or equal to negative 17. And then I need to make my number line. Negative 18, negative 17, negative 16. Remember, negative numbers on a number line go the opposite way that a positive number would. Positives would be 16, 17, 18. With the negatives is 18, 17, 16. Closed circle can equal negative 17. Shaded to the left. If I put in negative 18, that's true. Negative 18 is less than or equal to negative 17. All right, let's try number 5. So negative 7.5 is greater than or equal to d plus 10. To get rid of the plus 10, I'm going to subtract 10. With the decimal, I need to add a 0.0 here, so my decimal points line up. So I have d, I have my greater than or equal to sign. When I'm subtracting, if I do a boom boom, it's like a negative plus a negative. 5 plus 0 is 5. Bring down the decimal. 7 plus 0 is 7. 1 plus 0 is 1. Adding 2 negatives answers negative. Negative 17 and a half is greater than or equal to d. Or if you want to flip-flop the whole thing, remember you'd have to flip-flop the sign as well. D is less than or equal to negative 17 and a half. Either one of those solutions is fine. They both mean the same thing. Make my decimal a little bigger there. Okay, so let's see. I'm going to do negative 17.6, negative 17.5, negative 17.4. My numbers are consistent here. I'm going up by tenths. Okay, can be equal to, I drew my box, I kind of drew it over my equal to sign there, but can be equal to, d is less than or equal to, so I'm going to shade this way. If I put negative 17 and 6/10, that would be true. Negative 17 and a half is greater than or equal to negative 17 and 6/10. All right, let's take a look at number 6. X plus 3/4 is greater than 1 1/2. All right, so I'm going to subtract 3/4. X is greater than. I'm going to change my 1 1/2 to an improper fraction. 2 times 1 is 2 plus 1 is 3. So 3/2 minus 3/4. Then I need a common denominator. I'm going to use fourths. And that way I only have to change 1. 3 times 2 is 6. 2 times 2 is 4. So I have 6/4 minus 3/4. That's going to give me x is greater than 3/4. Two fourths, 3/4, 4/4. You could simplify if you wanted to 1 half, 3/4, 1 whole. Open circle, shaded to the right. If I picked 4/4, which is like 1 whole, and I put it into the inequality, that would be true. 1 is greater than 3/4, or 4/4 is greater than 3/4. All right, and our last type of problem is a story problem. So let's go ahead and look at it. A person can be no taller than 6 2/25 feet to become an astronaut pilot for NASA. Your friend is 5 feet 9 inches tall. Write and solve an inequality that represents how much your friend can grow and still meet the requirement. No taller than 6 2/25 feet. That means you can equal 6 2/25 feet, or you can be less than. You can't equal, or you can't be taller than this and still be an astronaut. So no taller than is going to be less than or equal to 6 2/25 feet. Now here our friend is 9 feet inches tall. Here we have decimal feet. Here we have inches. We're going to change our inches into a decimal so that we can compare those values. So 5 feet 9 inches is like 5 9/12. 12 inches in a foot, and we know 9 of them. So to make that into a decimal, I would have to divide. 12 does not go into 9 a whole number of times, so we're going to add a decimal and a 0, and a 0 and a decimal. And 12 goes into 97 times. 7 times 12 is 84. 90 minus 84 is 6. Add a 0, bring it down. 12 goes into 65 times exactly. So my decimal is 7,500. So 5 and 9/12 is the same thing as 5 and 7,500. Okay, so now we're ready to put that into the inequality. So my friend is 5 and 7,500 feet tall. We want to know how much extra they can grow, and then they still have to either equal 6 2/25 feet, or they have to be less than that amount. This is addition. To cancel it out, we subtract. We do want to make sure we're lining up our decimal point, lining up our place values before we do that subtraction. So we have x is less than or equal to 5 minus 5 is 0. 2 minus 7 takes us to the negative, so we're going to borrow. This is going to be a 5. This will now be a 12. 12 minus 7 is 5. 5 minus 5 is 0. X is less than or equal to 50 hundredths feet. That's 1/2 of a foot. And if you really wanted to get fancy and change it into 6 inches, you certainly could. But x is less than or equal to 1/2 of a foot. All right, here is our last one. Your cousin is 5 feet 3 inches tall. Write and solve an inequality that represents how much your cousin can grow and still meet the requirement. Go ahead and pause the video and try this one on your own. Okay, so let's go ahead and check our answers. So we still have that less than or equal to 6 2/25 feet that we had in our last problem. 5 feet and 3 inches is like 3/12. 5 and 3/12. So to change that 3/12 into a decimal, we do 3 divided by 12. 12 does not go into 3 a whole number of times. Does go into 30 twice. 2 times 12 is 24. We subtract to get 6. We add a 0, bring it down. 12 goes into 65 times. 5 times 12 is 60. So my decimal is 2,500, 5.25. So my inequality is going to be 5 2/25 plus x is less than or equal to 6 2/25. We would subtract our 5 2/25 from both sides. We have x is less than or equal to 5 minus 5 is 0. 2 minus 2 is 0. bring down the decimal. 6 minus 5 is 1. So x is less than or equal to 1.